5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hi, this panel discussion's title is The 21st Century Must Have Super Skills. What are the fundamental kit of tools in order to live a fulfilling life? Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Sanjaya, and by day I am a consultant in digital customer experience platforms, whereby I help organizations enhance the customer experience for their customers. And one of my personal passions is exploring ways of effective communication to bring about awareness and action towards social causes. In this session, we'll be having a conversation about the 21st century must-have super skills, which is a big topic. So for the purpose of today's 80-minute panel discussion, we'll be focusing on three key areas. What is considered a super skill? Why are they considered a super skill? And how can we get started applying skills in our daily lives? It's my pleasure to begin. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a Friday evening. I know you must have had a really long week, so really appreciate you joining us today. Great. So, a quick introduction of Faz is she is the Director of Consulting at Compass MTC, Head Coach at Faz Forward, and Associated Faculty of Othman Yop Abdullah Graduate School of Business. She also comes with experience from the corporate world. CEO, business culture consultant, and executive vulnerability coach at Carl Sean Watkins Consulting. And he's also an aspiring civil rights attorney. Welcome, Carl. There's a great bunch of names and titles that you have, which I really look forward to understanding a bit more about what they all mean. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Next up, we have Andreas Dorn. Andreas Dorn is joining us right now. He used to be based in Malaysia, but he's in Germany at the moment. So thank you, Andreas, for joining us from Germany.
Andreas most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Andreas is a certified NLP trainer, a hypnotherapy master trainer, an NLP coach trainer, and timeline therapy trainer at Asia Mind Dynamics, which is an organization he founded. Thank you, Andreas. Next and lastly, we have Michael Thiel. Michael Thiel, thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Pleasure is all mine, Sanjaya. The pleasure is all mine. Hope we are all gathered here to inspire more lives and ignite greatness in people. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yes, looking forward to the conversation. So quick introduction to Michael Thiel. Michael Thiel is the founder of Thriving Talents. He's also an investor in startups like Oct-31st, Growth Achievers, Crave, just to name a few. He's also on the board of several public organizations, such as being the Central Committee member and Director of Government Relations at PUMM. He's also involved in organizing TEDxKL, and he has shared the stage with the likes of Sir Richard Branson, Tan Sri, Tony Fernandez, and even had President Obama visit one of his training sessions. Thank you, Michael. Great to have you today.
Thank you. Pleasure is all mine. Let's rock this.
All right, so to get started, I thought I'll let the audience get to know you a little bit better just beyond the title and the introduction that I gave. So I wanted to ask a couple of questions, just trivia questions, just to get to know you a bit more. So starting off with Faz, I understand you made a pivot in your career from being in talent management and HR in the corporate world, and then starting your own business to coach and guide professionals in personal development and growth. What made you make this pivot?
My group CEO taught me too well. I didn't think of retiring early. I think of rewiring myself. But I spent 7 years in AirAsia as the group head of talent. And it was such an interesting environment, looking at the people from various generations coming together. And I suddenly feel this hunger that I want to help people from more diverse backgrounds, not just people from one client organization. So I figured it's time. And it was a performance management conversation, mind you, where I sat down with my boss and I asked him, what would you do if you realized that you've lost your mojo? So the conversation did not touch on my performance at all. It became a conversation of how can I support him, how long do I have to leave, and what's next for me. So it's really about helping more people, more different people, and that has been my day and night for about 4 years now.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Thank you for that story, Faz. If I could move over to Carl, you went from
Yes.
being a financial service, being in financial services to legal service, and now being in business consultancy. Tell us a bit more about what that journey was like, and what is your mission behind having such a diverse experience?
Hey, thanks for having me again, Sanjeev. It was just a pivot of just understanding what my passion was. Finance came easy to me. I grew up as a son of a CPA, so numbers was incorporated in everything that we did at home, including games. Of if you could tell me how much percentage this off before we get to the register, maybe I'll buy you a pack of gum. Maybe so it became. Mom taught us a game in that, so numbers was that. So it was ultimately that I would follow behind her because that's pretty much all I knew. But as I went into finance, I come to understand that at a young child, I wanted to be an attorney. And I remember watching the old Perry Mason shows, and I just gravitated to the command of the room that he had in the essence of cross examinations and those kind of things. So did not know what that looked like, but that's what I was passionate about, and I liked how he helped people. So in the essence of that, I went back to school. Right now, currently in law school, studying civil rights and family law. And I knew with my passion for helping, coaching, training, and my diversity and inclusion and culture, all of those things that I worked so very hard for in corporation, it needed to be cultivated outwardly, away from that. I wanted to do individuals and I wanted to do workshops and I wanted to go into arenas where I can train people that the culture is the real dynamic to the diversity and inclusion. And I found it fascinating how people would open up to me and talk to me. And I went on this vulnerability, not necessarily kick, it was my lifestyle. I live vulnerable. I wear it on my sleeve. I have no problem with it. I don't have any skeletons in the closet that I haven't already told. So I'm not concerned with that. So it gave me a power to empower others. And I think that's how I lead. That's how I live. That's how I train. That's how I worship. That's how I coach. So that's kind of like my journey and where I am now.
Great. Thank you for that little snippet. Thanks, Carl.
Thank
Moving
you.
on to Andreas. I was obviously trying to research. We're from all different parts of the world. I was trying to do a bit of research just to get to know you, and it seems to be it's a common theme with your career and how your life has turned up, and it seems to revolve around helping people. From the time you started in UNDP to now having your own organization for personal development through NLP. So, what made you shift from trying to look at how to allocate or gather resources to help communities to now focusing on the individual and helping the individual?
Well, thanks so much for this, Sanjaya. I always thrive on helping people make the changes, help organization to break through to the different next level overall. It took me years actually to figure that out. But I worked in Sri Lanka in small and medium enterprises. I was in Africa did my thesis about the timber industry, and in Ghana, I worked in Nigeria, in Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, and all that. Came with the United Nations to Malaysia. And then, hey, like all Matsalis, all foreigners love to fall in love with Malaysia, the food, the people, the work. So I decided to stay actually on. It was way back in 1993. and worked in Indonesia with a different company. Singapore, came back to Malaysia, working in an HR consulting company. And in this HR consulting company, they were very much engaged in mergers and acquisitions, big organizations coming together. Of course, you get cultural discrepancies, challenges, and we interviewed lots of people in the organizations like CEOs, directors, managers, executives. And a common theme was it's hard to change behaviors. And I nearly got hypnotized by this one as well, that it's like hard to change behaviors, or if somebody changes the behaviors, will it last overall? And then by luck, by chance, by great opportunity, I came across something, a little training, a 2-day training called Extraordinary Performance with NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And I realized that this is, to me, nowadays still is the only tool that helps people to make changes inside that thing called subconscious mind or brain, if you want to do it, and actually creating lasting changes. And I fall in love with how easy it can be to create those changes. So that's when I decided to become an NLP trainer. I became a practitioner, then master practitioner, then trainer, became a master trainer of hypnosis, timeline therapy, all these tools you've mentioned earlier, NLP coach trainers and all of that. And from 2005 onwards, offering that stuff to the public. And there's nothing nicer in my life overall when people come to me and they are frustrated, they are stuck, they don't know how to move on somewhere along that line. And I help them. It's not me doing it to them, but working together with them to help them to make that changes in their mind and see the smile on their face, and that they realize it's happening. They can create the life they want to have. And it doesn't matter if it's a 2-day training in an organization or working in a coaching or therapeutical environment with an individual, or do it in my public training. And it's nothing nicer than helping people to really get to live the life they deserve to have. Sorry for the lengthy explanation, but it's just me.
No, it's beautiful. You put a smile on my face already, thinking of the potential of changing my mind and my behavior. So thank you for that, Andreas. And next up, I would like to ask Michael, what inspires you to focus on the life's work? You focus on human resource and talent development. What inspires you to do that?
It all started with a decade-long story of me living day by day, being bullied, being looked down upon because I was weak in sports, because I came from a lower social economic family in society. And I knew at that time when I was growing up, my friends didn't know better. I mean, we were all very young. We were all just in primary school in Malaysia. That's around 7 to 12 years old. And then that bullying carried on from 12 until I was 15. And through a series of bad accidents, it was one day that I snapped. I think I NLP'd myself very early on in life. I haven't had a chance to meet Andreas yet at that time. But what happened was I snapped one day and thought that, the only person that could change my life is me. So since I am not good in sports, I'm just going to do sports to be healthy, and I was going to embark on something else. So I found myself participating in a lot of public speaking, debating competitions, whenever there's an opportunity for me to speak. And I always find myself that I'm always challenging the norm. For example, when I started my training company, we focused on millennials. And I started it in 2012. Thriving Talents was born, and I was 24 years old at that time. And I remember, Sanjaya, when I would knock on doors of clients and they would look at me and they would give me this weird look like, I think you've got the wrong appointment. We're here to look for a trainer. We're here to meet a trainer. We're not open for any interviews. And I would go in and say, no, I am your trainer. And they would give me a smirk like, are you serious? Even my kids, they're older than you, man. And, I get shown the door so many times. I nearly went under with my company, Thriving Talents, where for the first 6 months, we didn't have any revenue because everybody just had this thought that just because you're young, you're inexperienced, just because you're young, you would not have that much wisdom, with due respect, as compared to all the seniors. I have to admit that, true, to a certain extent. But I wish people gave us more chance. But thank God, through Thriving Talents, after 6 months of perseverance, we locked in our first client, and that first client made all the difference. And that was Microsoft. And that was how we grew our little small training company, focusing on millennials in helping leaders and organizations to decode the behaviors of people below the age of 35 to make them more productive and profitable. We do that through our consulting, coaching, and training services, employee engagement services. And we have been able to spread our wings to 41 countries so far. And as you have mentioned earlier, Sanjaya, breaking the norm one more time, getting President Barack Obama to sit in one of my workshops when he visited Malaysia for half an hour with our then Prime Minister, Dato Sri Najib Razak. So it's been an amazing journey, but I would describe myself as someone who's always challenging the norm, always thinking, what can we young people do? So that has always been my passion. I believe that will always be my passion moving forward, developing and championing the most important group by numbers of employable talent, by numbers of new entrepreneurs in the industry, in any country around the world, the millennials generation. So we'll continue to champion and develop them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael. I'd love to find out and learn more about what you do at Thriving Talents. But I think with that just story alone, I'm sure you have helped and broken barriers as well and inspired people to look into what a bit more to do, like what you do in pursuing and being persistent. Thank you so much, Michael. Last but not least, we have Juliet. Hi, Juliet. Juliet, the question to you is: your first season of your podcast, Next Stop Crazy Town, it is a podcast or a season of the podcast where you share stories of your life to provide some relief in people's day. Why do you think that is so important, and what's the message behind you sharing these stories?
Yes, and thank you, Sanjay. And I just want to say I'm just so honored to be on the stage with you guys, virtually, I know, but really every single one of you just spoke. My heart just got bigger, right? What we're doing and what we're trying to do is just amazing. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for including me on this. So yes, Next Stop Crazy Town started as a passion project. I started my coaching career as a health and fitness coach. And I noticed really soon, quickly, that a lot of my clients were, and at that time, they were a lot of moms in the same situation I was, a mom that, had just, our kids got a little older and it was like, okay, we were like losing ourselves a little bit. Maybe we were in the corporate world and we decided to stay home. We were fortunate enough to stay home, but then we kind of lost ourselves a little bit. So a lot of times I was, very prevalent on social media, and I would have clients time and time again just say to me, "You seem to have it all together." And I would just laugh and I'd be like, "No." And I would do posts on social media of messy stuff. Every morning I would wake up and I would do stories, my hair sometimes crazy, no makeup, because I'm okay with that, because I'm comfortable in my skin. And that's what I really wanted my clients to achieve, because a lot of times they were not achieving their goal they wanted. And it really was because of their mindset that we've all talked about, right? It was whether they had 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds to lose, whether it just was they wanted to be comfortable in their own skin, nothing to do with weight. They wanted to get stronger. There was something that I kept running into, and it was time and time again where they just were comparing themselves to others and really not doing what they needed to do, their own work. Just like everyone said here, they weren't doing the work on themselves. And I am not a therapist. I don't want to be a therapist. And so there was a period of time where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start a podcast. I told my husband and my children. It was a time also that I was feeling a little, I wasn't in my creative world, and I was feeling there was something a little bit missing. I have great life, love my family, love where I was at the time, but I felt like there was something missing a little bit. So I said to them, "I'm going to start a podcast." And they said, "Oh, that's great. Do you know how to start a podcast?" And I said, "No, but I'm going to figure it out because I have stories to share. I know when I go to parties or I meet people, I always can make people laugh. I know I have something that's going to help, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 100,000 people. I know I can make a difference in people's lives." So I created Next Stop Crazy Town. I think I launched it within 3 months of having the idea, when my family, actually, we were also traveling to Europe. So it was around the time that I really could have launched it, probably within 2 months, a month. But I was like, wait a second, I'm going to be in Europe with the family. This is not the best time to start it. Let me take a step back and start it correctly. So that's what I did. And from Next Up Crazy Town, it morphed into your next stop. And then it morphed into a workshop. And that's where I have a platform where it's not just personal journal stories. I interview people because that is a passion of mine. That is what my path, that is what, whether you believe in God or the universe, that is what coming to me. You need to interview and you need to interview. And I realized that there I could also help people find a passion, find creative, not just be stuck and unsettled in their life. And so I now storytell and highlight people with stories, very much like what you guys have said. So thank you so much for this. This is exciting. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, great. Thank you so much for that sharing, Julia. I mean, I'm good to assume that you are in your creative element or space right now doing what you do.
Yes. Oh, totally. And, we talk about this time and time again. When I wake up, I'm excited. I'm excited. Like, who's the next person am I going to speak to? What am I doing? And it's really awesome for my kids to see that I created something in my brain and I did it. And I didn't let anyone stop me, even though there was times where my audio wasn't great. Now as you can see, I figured it out, but it's because I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared of the failure and I wasn't scared of what other people were going to say. I knew I wanted to do something for myself and that's what I did. And from there, I created a business out of it. But that's because that's what my God's given gift and path were. And as we talked about, Michael talked about age and stuff, as my journey went on, I'm going to be turning 48 and I'm in my prime in my business and in my life right now. As a mother, I love that. That's what I was meant to do at that time in my life. When I was a health and fitness coach, that's what I was meant to do at that time in my life. And so it's so important for people to realize that your life is going to go ups and downs. You're going to have journeys, but if you just keep listening and following what makes you on fire and just gives you that like feeling in your stomach is what is going to then catapult you into what you should be doing.
So you woke up, basically speaking, no?
I did. And, there's times in my life where where I was awake, but I just wasn't, I was maybe distracted, right? As a mom, having 3 kids, 2 dogs, we lived in the city, we moved a lot, there's a lot of different things and that was okay. It was okay. And I was in that time of my life, that's what I was meant to do. But now this is what I was meant to do. So yes, Andreas, exactly.
I appreciate so much you saying that because I mean, at least from my personal perception, there seems to be so much out there in the world about my one focus, my one mission in life. But like you just shared, we go through ups and downs, we change, we evolve. So it's great to hear other people saying that actually, no, there are some times when you need to pivot and find something different. And it can be just like successful. It doesn't mean you have to dedicate your entire life to one thing. It could be for some people, but not just for everybody. So thank you so much. Going to take a quick pause to address or basically say hi to the audience. We have some familiar faces from previous panelists as well. Kenyatta, hi Kenyatta. Thank you. So I just wanted to speak to the audience and say, please do put your comments in, ask your questions as we go through this dialogue conversation today, as there will be great prizes for the most engaged audience member. Also, if you see in the top right-hand corner, there is a QR code. Use your phone. Scan the code. There will be instructions for a treasure hunt. Please follow, win and apply for that treasure hunt. So please do stay engaged. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're talking about super skills, but in my personal perception or my personal opinion, super skills can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, depending on which aspect of their lives they're looking to address. So whether it's relationships, excelling in work, fulfillment, happiness, meaning of life, right? So I thought before we actually talk about the skills that we can apply, I wanted to understand from the perspective of the audience and the panelists, what does life mean to you? What is the meaning of life to you? So if I could start with Faz, what does the meaning of life to you?
The question that keeps me awake at night. Over the years, I've asked myself that, Sanjaya, seriously, what is the meaning of life? And then I added to me. It really helped me to think about it from my perspective, because the way I experience life to me is a journey where I do things, I have conversations. I always give this example to friends. I see life like a long train ride. And people come and join us. They come to our station. They come and join us in our cabin, and then when they're done, they arrive at their station. They may leave us. That's okay. That's okay. So for me, I feel like why I am in this long train journey is because I feel like I'm here to help people to face the unknown. And that's the whole key. It's about getting everybody, including myself, to be more agile, to be more adaptable, and more willing to confront the unknown. And to me, that's life. A long train ride, because I love trains, where I work with people to help them see that we can face the unknown and enjoy it. So yeah, that's a long train ride.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. All right. Michael, if I could ask you, you've traveled all around the world with the work that you do and meeting such a variety of people, cultures, and societies. What have you found that is common amongst all of us in the pursuit of happiness?
Kindness. When was the last time we have been kind to another person intentionally? When was the last time that we replaced feelings of envy, jealousy, or comparison with feelings of gratitude? When was the last time that we asked ourselves, no matter what we're doing, how are we building ourselves up so that we are able to serve more people? Of course, starting with the ones closest to us, with our loved ones, with the ones that work with us, with the ones that mentored us, which, by the way, it was Andreas's wife that actually worked with me and coached me during my first neuro-linguistic programming certification.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, there you go. So it is working with people like that and just thinking how we could spread more kindness to the world. I'm saying this because I used to be very, very, very competitive. I think coming from a background that I was bullied since I was young, all the way up to middle school. And then when I adopted this mantra that I will no longer wait for opportunities, I will create opportunities for myself. And of course, that brought in a whole of skill sets, or I would say habits, behaviors like being enterprising, being resourceful, being proactive, being thick skin. In Asia, we have a term called thick skin. That is, you're not embarrassed. I mean, truth be told, I went up to Microsoft and said, I really like to meet President Barack Obama. Can you make it happen for me? And it took them 4 years. And in the end, they made it happen for me, right? I mean, that's thick face, right? I mean, why would the president even come to my workshop? But he did, right? So I was very competitive until last year. When whatever happened, the pandemic hit and my business suffered. But that was the time where I decided that instead of leading life, being so competitive, being always wanting to be the number one all the time, why not lead life with kindness, help others? It came to a point that in my company now we adopted a new philosophy. Now we would pitch for deals, we would pitch for projects, training projects, human capital development opportunities. And last time, I think because we were younger, whenever we won an opportunity, we would be celebrating, like, yeah, there you go, we're the best. But not after my business nearly went bust last year in the year 2020. My business recovered. Thank God. We are heading to be the best year yet, 2021, ever since my business was set up. But we adopted this philosophy where now we will no longer celebrate as crazily as before, even though we are blessed to have won a contract or an opportunity to work with people to train them up. That is because I would always remind my team, when we have won a certain deal, a project or a contract, that means others would have lost. So have a little bit of empathy, treat people with kindness. So it has helped me a lot. It has definitely helped me to sustain my mental health, better it, I would say. It has helped me to see life beyond materialistic gains. It has helped me to appreciate those closest to me, my grandma, my parents, my lovely wife, my team, my clients, my mentors. So that is how I would describe life. One word: kindness.
Amen. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Michael. We have an audience member, Riza Aziz, who says, my super skill is the appreciation of the beauty and in imperfection, which is his personal brand, the incomplete leader. I think leadership is probably one of the elements of super skills, and I'll get into that later in that later segment of this discussion today. All right, Carl, if I could go on to you and ask, of course, everyone's goal in life is unique and different, but what have you found common amongst common elements amongst the people that you've encountered and for yourself?
Everyone that I've come across, I've found the fear to embrace their vulnerability, and that's that's my mission. When I think about what that means, and a mentor once told me when I was courtshipping for a judge, he once told me that the fear is what drives all of our actions. And when he said that to me, I was like, it's got to be a lot more than fear that drives our actions. He said, no. He said, fear drives all your actions. Whether you're embracing fear or whether fear drives you away from what you need to be doing, it's the driver of all your actions. And I couldn't really put that to some kind of knowledge base because I didn't never have fear. I never thought of fears. I was like Michael, very competitive. I played 3 sports. In school, I played basketball, football, and baseball. My drive to win was essential. I mean, I was on the crust of being a sore loser when I lost. But it was an opportunity came to me where we played in a football game that I really got a notion. I was 14, and that was my freshman year of high school, and I played in a football game, and a rival of mine. I mean, we couldn't stand this high school. And if you guys play football, you know those rivalries. I couldn't stand this high school, but this gentleman was a running back and I was a running back, and he was getting a lot of accolades, and he injured himself in the game. And I was ecstatic. And at that point in time, I went through the game and I played through the game, and my heart and my conscience, I cried that night because in his calamity, I exalted. And at that point, it came to me that your competitive nature is going to kill you. So what I do, I went deep in and I started evaluating myself, how I felt about myself, my values. Why was I so competitive? What was driving that? What was making me want to be better than everyone else? Was it some shortcomings? Was it some things that I never faced? Was it some things that fear had put a wall up against? And I was living a facade. And at 14 years old, I went into that and I delved into that. And this is the journey that has brought me on. Understand that people, my question that I ask all my clients is, what is your relationship with your vulnerability? And it's a true question because we all have it. But see, we've gotten this definition from Merriam-Webster and Oxford and all of these dictionaries that it's exposing yourself to harm and danger. And this is the definition that we've taken on for our individual lives. I can't be vulnerable because vulnerability equals hurt. I created a new equation, even in workplace and corporate. A lot of people say that diversity and inclusion goes together, but I say I'll change that equation. And I say diversity plus vulnerability equals inclusion. And what that allows you to do, if you're vulnerable, you are allowed to be able to be a receiver to someone that needs you. And I think this is what Michael mentioned, humanity, because we've lost touch with that. Now everybody wants to be right. The whole world is competitive. No one wants to stand on the side of, let's see if we can come and reason together. Everyone is like, whether it's Democrat, Republican, whether it's black or white, everyone wants to choose a side. And we're so divided in the essence of that. So what I do, I use vulnerability strategically and intentionally, not as a dope off, not as a drop off, not as me to just let you know everything I've done. Because I've worked with hundreds of thousands of people, and they showed me vulnerability is not you knowing all the bad things about me. It's embracing my ability to let you be safe in my surroundings. And when we understand this, we change the narrative. And this is what I'm looking to do in law. If you guys know anything about law, especially in the US, it's a cold calculating industry where there's cutthroatness, there's win at all costs. And we have to be, as a society, as humanity, we have to play a role in helping others become back to what it is. I also say this, and I'll close with this. The pandemic was a reset, and it was an opportunity for all of us to get back to basics. And when I say that, just the basics in your life. Can you imagine being at a restaurant now that you're able to go to some and everyone's at the table on the phone? Everyone's at the table not engaging. Everyone is on their social media. There's no problems with that. But what this pandemic has taught me to do to re-engage with family. You're home with your family, you're homeschooling, you're home with your spouse or your significant other, your partner. Engage in those conversations that you've lost in the busyness of trying to be busy. The soccer moms going 80 hours a week, taking kids to practice, eating in the car from one place to the next, not engaging in meaningful conversation to develop your child. And when I say that, that's not a knock on parenting. I have two of my own, a 25-year-old and a 21-year-old. They're college graduates and going after their masters. So the essence of it is we have to give back. And as Michael say, I am an advocate for young. I mentor young people, at-risk youth here in New Jersey with the court system. I try to get to them before punishment is handed down so they can change their life. Because I was once on the streets. I was once an alcoholic. I was one that almost committed suicide. And in all of those things, I have a story to say that I deep down in my vulnerability and I lifted myself up, and you can do the same. But I appreciate you guys letting me share that.
Thank you so much, Carl, for that sharing. Great story. I think, yeah, I mean, it sounds like even from all the panelists, it's, we can have a diverse world, diverse people, which is great. It's colorful, it's exciting, but there is still this thread of commonality of humanity and wanting to be open and connected with each other, which seems to be something that, for circumstance of the way the world's evolving, sometimes that's not being as allowed as much as it was probably, in generations before. So thank you, Carl, for that sharing. Juliet, if I could move on to you. Through your podcast, you work and the work that you do, you speak to a lot of women, and you say, and in the current world that we live in, is the experience and goals in life different to men and other genders compared to women? Or is there a common human experience from your perspective that despite the variety of people that make up the world, that you find common amongst all of us?
There's something, I mean, there's commonness in all of us. And when I started working with just women, it was because it was what I was going through at the time. It was having young kids, coming out of the corporate life, staying home, and then having my kids grow, and me finding, wait, I'm a little unsettled right now. I need to find something else. So that was my first goal in life, was to, to really help, and not in life, but in my business, is to help these women kind of get out of their own way. And then as my business has evolved, I've included men. I have 2 boys and I have a husband, and I adore them as well. And there's times where I work with clients that are men, right? They're like, you know what? I'm unsettled. I'm feeling this. I feel like in this world, we can relate to our genders in a different way, but we also can add to the other gender because we can give a perspective that is different than ours. And I think that's what's really important. I think, and I think it was Carl that was saying that we all just need to kind of listen to our neighbors and listen to what people are doing and when people need help. And you can hear, one thing that I talk about all the time is that unsettled feeling. You need to stop and really be in yourself when you have that unsettled feeling, because that means you're not meant to be doing what you're doing. You're meant to be doing something else if you have that unsettled feeling. And that's a woman or men, right? There's men that are out there that, not saying that we've ever been in this situation, but we have, where my husband was making really great money, but he wasn't loving his he wasn't loving what he was doing after a certain amount of years. And I remember I said to him, we don't need all of this. Your happiness and you waking up excited to go to work is more important to me than all the things that we have. And I think that's something that a lot of men, that are, if they're the breadwinners, they get stuck in it. It's like, okay, they're making this money. They need to provide for their family, and they get stuck in their life, right? Because they're not doing something that they love, because it's the golden handcuff, that whole scenario. So yes, I work with men and women now. When I first started, it was really just a commonality because it was what I was going through. So it was very relatable for me to be able to speak with women and talk to women about what I was going through and be able to help them get out of, exactly where I was.
Great. Thank you. I think, one area that you spoke of is work. I think a lot of us, at least a lot of the people that I've experienced, and myself included, think of work as this thing that I have to do to have life, when you actually find out that most of your life is at work. So why should you not actually enjoy it and be fulfilled in the time that you spend in the work that you do? What is life other than actually enjoying this experience? So if you're going to spend so much hours in your life working, better try to make sure that you enjoy that time as much as you do with your family.
Right. Because if you think about it, a lot of what we were always told, you know, and a lot of generations, you work and then you retire. So you work, 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 and your goal is to retire. Well, why not find something that you love so much that you don't need to retire, right? You do it until you decide, I don't want to do this anymore because now I either found something else or it's time for me to, you know, my brain is not working the same or whatever else it is. But I think that people really need to think about that as they get up, they go to work, they come home, they have dinner, they wake up, they go, you know, and they just keep, and they're not living life the way they should live it. And it's because they don't know any better, right? They get into this whole stuck mentality, this whole mentality of, okay, this is life. It's okay. And maybe they're not unhappy. They're just not, you know, living life to the fullest. And I think that more people need to tap into that and really explore it.
I agree. Thanks a lot, Julian. Andreas, question to you. I believe you have a son or you have a child. Has having a child changed your perspective of life and the meaning of life?
I'm happy you didn't ask me to add on something to the purpose of life, because I loved all the responses, from the railroad going or fast to really, Julian, I love your response. You're 150%. I'm with you there to create. I'm always saying create your life the way you desire and deserve it, to get unstuck and really break through kindness and vulnerability. So I'm happy that you twisted a question in a bit different direction. Yes, I've got a son, 24 years old now, and he's actually living the life that we all want to have, because while we created a pathway for him that he doesn't need to work if he doesn't want to do it. So he's really started to develop himself the way he wants to have it. And it started very, very young. And one day, and I mentioned it to you earlier, Sanjaya, one day he came to us, and that's a lovely part of children, because, hey, I'm doing NLP since 2005. And I thought, like, I discovered myself. I unpeeled the onion. I'm really on awareness, getting unstuck, being curious about myself, aware of myself, aware of other people. So I thought, hey, I got it, okay? And one day my son came to me, and I think he was about 12, 13 years old at that time. He's now 24. And we asked him what parents do. What do you want to be when you are finished with school and everything? And he said, like, Papa, Mama, I want to be a parkour. Now, I'm not sure if you do know what's a parkour. If you watch movies, these are the guys, that's my description always, who are climbing up the buildings, jumping across walls. Kind of people describe it as stuntmen, but it's different. And he wants to be free runner and parkour. And I said, like, what the heck is that? So I Googled it up, and I was getting a shock, you know. I was like, oh my God, you know, it's my only kid. All that limiting beliefs came up, you know, my only kid. What will happen if he's getting injured? Who is going to marry him? How is he earning money along that line? What will happen if he's older? Julia said about retirement, all the way projecting it forward. What will he do to get to retire with the financial background and blah, 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 whatever, you know, like, okay, he's only 12 years old. He will grow out of it, okay? But he never grew out of it. And he was developing his passion. Sadly enough, through COVID, he couldn't do it. But he's so connected across the world in parkour and in free running, and he's studying videos, he's doing videos. He had a whole team. He was even in an association in Malaysia. He's living the life he wants to have. And now he's going to somewhere else over the COVID period. He started to create awesome graphics. He wants to do now more. He wants to do still parkour and free running. And I know in the meantime, there are people who are 60 or 70 years old who get started in parkour, and he wants to become a trainer and he wants to develop it. But he is also now doing graphic design, and his graphics, hey, I do promotion for my son now. His graphics are really, really awesome, really out of the world. So he has that creative mind. And I think, you know, kids are really great. That's why I appreciate you very much, Michael. You know, kids are so great. But then the parents are coming up, and school is coming up, and education is coming up, and it's good it's coming up, okay? Because we need to have some limiting beliefs like I can't fly, I can't run across the street when there are cars coming. I'm stronger than a car across the street. Those are good limiting beliefs to have. But there are limiting beliefs, so I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I can't do it, I need to earn money, I need to have a job, I need to get married, I need to have 25 kids or whatever, you know. So And it's about, we need to learn from children. We need to learn, hey, we are the baby boomers. We have gone through so many, many crises before. We should be able to learn from those children. And we need to teach them a little bit, but we need to still learn from them, understand them, develop them, but allow them to be who they want to be, because our skill set might not be up to date anymore. They have it. They are so incredibly creative. And it's about working together with each other. So I have the experience from many, many crises overall and traveling across the world. He has the experience of just doing what he wants to do and developing his mind, how it should be overall. So it's about allowing children to be who they want to be, and let's see what happens along that line. And I think something good might come out of it. That's just me talking.
Great, thank you, Andreas. I mean, yeah, we often think learning is for the young, the children. You learn, and then there's some point somewhere in adulthood where you stop learning. But actually, no, learning still continues, and actually, you might actually learn more from people who are, as Michael's also saying, who are less experienced in what you think they are. They have a different perspective, freedom, and openness, and not being, fit into a structure that we're used to having to go to work. So great. There's a lot of great sharings, and I want to get into the next segment. We're quickly running out of time. But yes, I want to now, we talked some great insights on some of the skills or some of the areas to at least, put the lens on, or put the telescope and start to look at how to look within and start with some super skills. So in this segment, maybe we could talk a little bit about, okay, you talked about those values that you just spoke of. What are some of the more core super skills to have for today to build on top of that insight that you get from that first step? So if I could start with Juliet, and before I ask Juliet as well, remind the audience, please put in what is your comments on and perspective on what the super skills of today must have is. Juliet, what are the foundation pillars of super skills from your perspective after you've done that deep dive into passion and understanding what your passion would be?
So I think it's really important, and for us to, as humans, kids, whatever, to really pause and think, right, and see as we're going through life what we're really good at, what we love, because sometimes you could love things that you're really not good at, but you can develop it. But there's other times where there are certain things that you're just not meant to do. So just to give you a really quick perspective, if you guys know what dyslexia is, I'm dyslexic. My son's dyslexic, my dad, my grandparents, my sister, we got a lot of dyslexia in our family. So school was really tough for me. I was not a great student, but like some of these people said before, I was a really good athlete. Really good athlete. I played 2 college sports. That's where I knew I was good. But as I dove down that path and thought, okay, I'm going to do something in my life that has to do with sports because that's what I'm good at, I gave myself a little bit of a limiting belief about creativity because I wasn't good at school. I wasn't really great at art. And I had a teacher at one point tell me, you're not good at art, stick with what you're good at. And I didn't put myself down, but I just always kind of thought, you know what, I'm not great at that. And as I developed into a person and my communication skills, people would never realize that I struggle in school with like the written word because my communication skills are so good because I'm very good with that. So I would develop that as I was growing. I would say, okay, a teacher, when I raise my hand, I talk about the book, I get that praise. When I write the report, I don't get the praise, right? They say, oh, you need to work harder on this. You didn't really do this well. And that, as a kid, you get a little crushed. Like, no, I really did work hard on that. It's just obviously I'm not great at that. And that's one thing that I think we all need to think about, right? But so there is a very fine line that you can develop for someone and say, okay, you're really, really good at this. You might struggle at this and you can work at it, but let's focus on the thing you're good at. So like in schools right now, what do they always do? They focus on your weaknesses, try to get those weaknesses better. And every time I go into a meeting with my son's teachers, I say to them, he can listen and memorize everything you guys say, but you don't bring that up, right? All you do is talk about, okay, he needs to work on his math skills. He's not going to be a mathematician. So let's just put that aside and let's develop what he is good at. Stop talking about what we're not good at. And so I think super skills are so important at a very young age for parents and for children and for people to kind of see, okay, I get a little praise here. I know that I can develop that. So to me, it's something that you find when you're little, as in family units. We have a big family. Are you the one that's funny? Are you the one, again, we can give ourselves limiting beliefs where we hear a story, but when you really sit and think about it, you really can develop that super skill, because it is something that, okay, people say, oh, you're really good at that. You're really good at that. And you need to dive into that. You need to listen to that. You need to sit with it, see how it feels. Because sometimes you're really good at something that maybe is not a passion. It maybe doesn't light you on fire, but that can develop into something else.
Thanks, Juliet. Okay, next one. Actually, Carl, I wanted to actually ask you a bit more about why the question asking what is your vulnerability. But since Juliet talked about weakness and what you're not good at, I mean, maybe to the untrained ear, that might sound like the same thing: vulnerability and weaknesses. How is it the same thing? Is it different? What's your perspective?
Oh, it's absolutely different. And what you've just taken is the narrative that the dictionary has given us for life. They've passioned it and they've put it and they've made you understand it by defining it, that vulnerability is a weakness. And I'm here to tell you that it's not. It's a superpower. It's the ability to embrace who you are and therefore cultivate who you are and then live your life. That's all vulnerability is. If I could put it in its simplest forms. Yes, there are a lot of obstacles and things that come with that. Yes, those people pick on you. Yes, I was bullied as a 3 sportsman. I could definitely go with that with Michael. I was a little one. I'm 5'10". I've been 5'10" ever since I graduated from high school. I don't know what happened. I thought you were supposed to grow a little bit. I never did. Those things that happened to me. I was 5'10", 200 pounds in high school. So I started lifting weights because people, saw me as a little guy. You know what I mean? It wasn't just severe bullying, but it was a snatch the chips out of my hand, smack my hat off. Those are the things, the antagonisticness of bulliness and the opportunity for people to take advantage of someone of the weakness. So what I did, I said, well, what am I good at? I listened to Juliet and she hit it so spot on. I have a couple of family members as well with dyslexia. And the idea that they remember things on a dime more than I've remembered writing down. And I've just written it down and I go back to them and they're like, yeah, I remember that. But it's the different ways that we have to, as a society, build up our youth. And these are the super skills. They're not any one in particular. They're interchangeable. Yes, can I go through a list? Leadership, character, integrity. Those are all skills. Those are all things. But vulnerability is something that's innate. It's given to you. And what that is your fear of protecting things you're not knowing of. So once you embrace the fear of things you don't know about, you become empowered because you overcome them. And that's what I get people to try to see within the vulnerability. That's why I ask, what's your relationship with that? Because relationships brings about understanding of. If we're a relationship on this panel, I'm understanding everyone on this panel to some degree. There's some interaction with us on this panel that we can come to one accord on some issues. If we do disagree, we're still sensible and liable and sensible enough to understand that you have a different perspective about it. And this is why I asked about your relationship with vulnerability, why it's so key. I want people to understand that it is not a weakness. If I can say that again, it is not a weakness. What it is the ability for you to understand who you are, what you're good at, what you may need help with, and how getting those things will make you you. We oftentimes live and we cut ourselves very short in the way that we live because we let fear give us a destination that we haven't even taken a step into a journey on. So what we allow fear to do is give us an ending, and we haven't even traveled the path. Why you haven't traveled the path? Because you haven't embraced the vulnerability within for you to take that step. And life is an unexpected journey. All of us have taken different courses and different directions of where we become. But look what we have become. We're here on this panel empowering others. And by our inspiration of just our life experiences, we can put on a list of some great things we've done, but we've only done that through our life experiences. And that's what being vulnerable allows you to do. It's what that makes up that relationship and that empowerment in you. And since we're on the Empowerment Summit, why not use that as your number one tool to empower you?
Thank you, Carl. Yeah, I completely can relate to that. Some of the most inspiring people to me that I've heard their stories about is, the challenges that they went through, the vulnerabilities that they had. They knew intimately how to try to work through those in order to make it through the world. And because they had such an intimate understanding of that vulnerability, it became their superpower. Because no one knew it as much as anyone else had, even if it was something similar. If that makes sense compared to what you're saying as well.
Yes, absolutely. And you're spot on with that, because once you have, the key is the relationship. And if I can say that That's the key superpower. That's what makes it a superpower. When you get a relationship to the things that you're weak in, it's the same thing as at school, and we don't take it as that. Julia talked about school and what the teacher harped on, or what they identified and created a particular chaos about was his ability to not pick up and do great in the math. Okay, I could take that and flip that. Okay, he's vulnerable in that. Math is not a strong subject. They told me about math and algebra. I have yet to use algebra in my career, yet to. But they made it a fundamental thing for me to take in college. This is where we have to go to with that. And I don't want to get into policies on that, because that's something that I really dive into. But we have to start teaching the kids in school that is far beyond the book knowledge of what you can obtain from reading. Your experiences should be cultivated. When I came out of college, there was no things to teach me how to use what I read about. There was no one training me how to use the skills that I learned from reading a book and apply that to my everyday life. And this should be what we should be intent on with our youth. This should be not letting the iPads and social media and Facebook feed them and educate them, but have them to see their passions, hone in on that, and understand what solutions can they solve. If you got a problem or something that's consistently coming up in your life, it's something that you have the answer to. And through vulnerability in that relationship, you understand that. And you say, okay, this keep coming up, so I must be a solution, because we don't keep on running into the same things unless we have the ability to solve them. So that's how I live my life. I know that if you come to me and I'm studying getting this reoccurrence of people, and I'm running across the same people with this same thing and this same problem, I must have the solution. And that's how I built my business. But I get excited about that. I could go on and on, sir. I get excited.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I actually have a part of the discussion to actually go into how people can apply it. But I think even just for me here, and I'm sure the audience would agree, you've given two great valuable nuggets on where to look and then how to just keep figuring it out for yourself, right? There's not an answer out there. There might be frameworks that we all can share from the experience that you have, but it's ultimately something about you having to figure it out for yourself. Thank you so much, Carl. Faz, if I could ask you, in the work that you do, you talk a lot about learning agility. What is that? Share us a bit more about what that is, and how is that going to help us thrive in today's world?
Oh, Faz, I think you're still muted, Faz. No worries.
Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that, because listening to everybody else, it strengthens my resolve, because agility is about flexibility, right? So I mentioned earlier that learning agility is about being willing and being adaptable to confront the unknown. So there are four types of learning agility. There's mental, there's people, there's change, and there's results. So the mental agility it is something that I think we all can imagine. Imagine a friend of yours, or even you yourself, can just look at a problem that's super complex, multiple touch points, and you can break it up and put it back together differently in a way that makes sense. It's like doing horribly difficult mathematical equations in your head. So that's really people who are comfortable with the complexity of a problem. And then we've got people agility. These are people who know themselves so well, and they understand the value of different perspectives. Even when the situation is difficult, we still look at what are the different perspectives. What's the value of each of these? And then there's change agility. These are people who love to experiment, can cope effectively with the discomfort of rapid change. A few years ago, I had to get my group CEO to approve a 3-year strategic paper. So the whole idea was I will wait at the office in Kuala Lumpur and I'll get it signed. So I've got all my stuff. So I'm doing my work. I'm not just waiting like that. So I was waiting. I was doing my work. And then he said, sorry, I've got to go and meet the minister. Okay. Rush. All right. So I might as well go back to the airport, because I worked at the airport. So I went to the airport, very far airport, by the way. And as I was sitting there at the airport, I was doing my work, and suddenly I got a message. Hey, I have a few minutes, but I'm in the city center. Friday evening, any city, in the world. You tell me if it's not going to be jammed. I said, yes, I want that 5 minutes. Wait for me. I told my big boss. I went all the way into the jam, into the city center. It's like, if I was not comfortable with change, I will be like, oh, all my hair would have been white by now or by then. So that's really someone who likes to experiment and can cope without hurting themselves, because of the discomfort of rapid change. So finally, we've got results agility. Now, and here's the special thing. These are resourceful individuals. And these resourceful individuals, they can deliver results. First-time situations. They inspire teams and they have significant impact on others. So having recognized which of this one or maybe more agility is present in your own self, by having relationship with ourselves, by asking ourselves, what is it that we love? By asking ourselves, what is it that we find so easy to do? These can be the first steps of being comfortable with the future that we never can predict, to be honest. So that's why I love talking about learning agility, because they can really help us to cope and to confront and to be more proactive with the future that we don't know. And now you're muted.
Muted.
My apologies. Sorry. I was wanted to stay focused on what you're saying. Sorry, just very quickly again, Faz, what were the 4 agilities? What the type, the categories?
Mental, people, change, results.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Faz. If I could go on to Michael. So you just now spoke as well. You said you work with the Gen Y millennials because they seem to be, what's the word that you use, the most equitable category or generation? Is that what was it said that you used?
The term I used was like employable. Like, these are the talents that are available in abundance right now, and they are looking for jobs. They are going into the job market, and they're also the ones that the more senior generations would need to find a successor from. So they've become quite an important generation, the millennials. You're talking about the Generation Ys, the Generation Zs that are all coming up.
Yeah, great. So my question to you was, okay, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're still trying to shed some of the old systems and structures of way of thinking and doing things, right?
Sure.
But is the super skills, from your perception, different from the generations of before compared to what is needed for the Gen Ys and millennials?
In my opinion, I believe from what I've observed, and again, I'm going to make a disclaimer right here. I may be generalizing. I may be stereotyping, all right, things, okay? So I'm just going to make that disclaimer. So my apologies first, but at least this is what I've observed. So when I work with millennials, they would typically be 2 type of very distinct groups. You would have one which is normally the masses, the average Joe, and then you would have the high super performers. So the high super performers would be people like how Faz have described them, having the 4 learning agilities. I was actually writing a lot of notes down and being a student as well today. So thank you again, Faz and Carl and Juliet. I'm still waiting for Andreas to share. So let's not talk about the high performers. Let's talk about the average Joe, which forms the masses of the millennials generation that I work with. Young executives, young entrepreneurs, young salespeople in companies. So I would focus on 3 super skills that I believe the millennials generation would need to harness, would need to sharpen, would need to really master. And these 3 skills, or these 3 super skills, can be seen with the senior generation. It's just that now, as we're getting to see the younger and younger talents come into the workforce and they leave a different lifestyle, we're beginning to see where they're maybe losing in touch with this 3 super skills that have made our senior generations very effective in what they do. So the first super skill that I believe all millennials should actually learn and master, and how we can get inspired from what has been done by our senior generations, would be resilience. It is quite shocking that I've observed and seen a lot of millennials, especially here in Malaysia, where during challenging times, they would rather just sit around because they have wealthy parents, or I would say wealthier parents. They're all working professionals, and they tend to just relax, And I think they have been bogged down by so many people telling them, pursue your passion, pursue your passion, pursue your passion. And I agree, pursuing your passion is important. But some of these millennials use that as an excuse for not doing anything, because they would say, I don't know my passion yet. I'm looking. I'm staying at home. I hope that the idea would pop up somehow and I would have found my passion. But it's not here yet. So I don't know, right? So again, the art of resilience is very important. I believe that's a super skill that a millennial should learn. The second super skill that I would encourage all millennials to learn is resourcefulness. And I understand that Faz has mentioned that again. I think Juliet has mentioned it earlier as well. It's about us, the millennials generation. People would say we are being blessed with much more technological advancement compared to the previous, more senior generation. We're more open to the ever-connected digital world. But the question is, are those technological advancements making us lazier, or are they opening up our mind to now believe that we could do more things? More possibilities have opened up for us. So I believe for the millennials, instead of thinking, oh, here's another problem in my life. Oh no, why is this problem happening to me? Why are the senior generation so hard to work with? Start thinking about, what can I do about this? And again, quoting Carl, I love it. What is your relationship? And I know that Carl mentioned about what is your relationship with vulnerability. My take on that is, what is your relationship with anything? Like, what is your relationship with being resourceful? What is your relationship of being a problem solver instead of a naysayer, instead of someone who complains? So I'm a believer where the next super skill, the second super skill that millennials need to have is resilience. Resourcefulness. First was resilience, second is resourcefulness. And the third super skill that I would recommend all millennials to have, again, it boils back to the first point I mentioned earlier on in our session, and that is kindness. So kindness can be interpreted in my mind as empathy as well, having empathy. Now, I know that this trend is growing. I know that is why we have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In Malaysia, I understand that all public listed companies must now implement the ESG, environment, society, and governance, to portray a more positive, equitable, fair, sustainable practice in the way we lead our businesses. And I believe that's the super skill to go for. That means millennials should know, how do they play a bigger role in preserving our environment? How do they play a bigger role in becoming a positive change agent through kindness and empathy through our society? And how do they play a bigger role in becoming role models to ensure integrity, fairness, justice, just practices in our governance as well? So those would be the 3 super skills that I would recommend to any millennials to have to future-proof themselves.
Fantastic. So if I could just repeat that: resilience, resourcefulness, and kindness.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Michael. Andreas, if I could ask, your experience as a neuro-linguistic programming trainer, what are the kind of skills that you're imparting onto your clients, and why do you feel or think or know that they're important?
I can again say only what everybody else said. Like, I just love it. So I give a little bit, most likely the shortest one of you all. And it's more than just 3, but they're all connected nevertheless. So first of all, to me, is to learn, which nobody teaches actually, sadly enough, how to manage your mind, thoughts, and emotions. That's already actually everything. When you manage your mind, you manage your thoughts, and you manage your emotional states. That is number one to me. It's very, very important. Everything starts there, coming from my world, of course. Then following this one, what most people don't have along that line, and what I'm always saying in any of my session, is about curiosity. Be curious about yourself, be curious about other people. Because when you're curious about yourself and you realize, hey, I think it goes in alignment with also what Carl said, when I'm stepping out of my comfort zone and I feel anxiety, I feel fear, I feel confusion, I feel excited or I'm motivated, I can start becoming curious about myself. What's really going on within myself? What do I feel here right now? What does it say about me? Where is it coming from? So it's about discovering yourself step by step, getting forward. But it's getting up. First of all, it's getting up and do something. And I think it goes in alignment with what Michael said, not just sitting there and waiting for things to happen, but discovering yourself and breaking through your limits only when you start doing something and not getting served all the time, which is also okay sometimes. And the last one is, most likely it goes also in alignment, is about learning all the time, especially nowadays. I mean, we had COVID, we had a big reset, and it's really putting everybody back to point zero. There's nobody who's really ahead, but it's about learning all the time and realizing when something doesn't work, something pisses you off, makes you angry along that line, always hold in your mind, and I'm always saying that in training, it is not about pointing fingers outside of you and saying it's because of this or that person or that circumstances I can't succeed, but it's really about when something doesn't work or you are upset with something or somebody, what is there to learn about that situation? What can you learn about yourself? Not about others, about yourself. When you are angry or pissed off or something doesn't work, and I'm speaking negative here, but or even when you are happy, what can you learn about yourself when you are happy, excited or so? But when you speak negatively, because most people, in something doesn't work, they start pointing fingers outside. But the thing is, if I learn something about myself in that situation, that one thing that makes me angry right now or pisses me off will disappear. Because everything outside of us, everybody outside of us is a teacher. So if there's anybody whom I don't like, it's a teacher to me. What can I learn about that person? So this negativity disappears. So these are the three things, basically speaking. One is managing mind, thoughts, and emotions. So to learn that one, be curious about yourself and others, and learn all the time about yourself and the world around yourself. Never stop learning.
Great. Thank you so much, Andreas. So for me, what stuck out the most was the part where you said about ownership. I think I'll be the first to raise my hand. I've been guilty of that. I'm not taking ownership, blaming everything and my circumstances, and I'm born this way. I don't believe in free will. So everything to be, even free will, I've given the excuse that I'm not taking ownership, and it is difficult. I mean, it's not an easy thing. It's hard to do that. But if you can't take ownership just yet, I think the other important thing that you said is, at least can you see what you can learn from it and reflection, understand yourself a little bit more, even if you don't actually have that confidence or courage to go out and take action. So thank you. Those are some great points. All right. I'm struggling to try and see, because there's so much I want to ask you. We're running a lot. We're very running fast through time because there's some great sharings. But one last segment, a question on this segment that I'd like to ask Paz. The other buzzword we hear today is leadership skills, leadership, try to be a leader. Is leadership skills, in your perspective, only something to learn if I'm in a leadership role? Or is there some quality of leadership skills that we all can apply regardless of the role that we're playing in that moment?
We might need to take this to another 24, 48 hours. Because all these years, I've been assigned as a role as a leader. I've been a manager. I've been given so many comments on how I am managing, how I'm leading. I've come to realize through learning, I follow Marcus Buckingham's work, and I agree with what he said about leading and managing. I see it as a hat. as a manager hat, as a leader hat. So that's how I understand it. As a leader, what is great, the one thing about it is my key role here is to see clearly the path, the future that I'm heading towards, and to be able to paint it to the people who are following me. So that's the one key role as a leader. And the one thing as a manager, what I need to do is to know everybody so that I can know who has the right strengths for the right job. So if I wear those two hats at the same time, I will probably drive myself nuts because they're slightly different. Different. So that's how I see it. So that's the to go with. Do I have to have senior manager as a title, or do I have to own my own business to learn this? No, we can all learn the key things there in wearing those hats at any level, to have clarity of thought, clarity of expression. That is a skill, a competency that takes many, many years. That is something that everybody at every role in any organization can do. To recognize who we're working with, identify what's their key strength, and how they can grow it. That is something that anybody can learn. That's a super skill to me. So number one is to have clarity on the direction, on this beautiful rainbow-filled future, and to be able to explain it clearly to people, and to know what are the strengths, the key strengths of everybody that we're working with. So I hope that helps. Otherwise, I would have to find out how we can explore this in 48 hours.
Right. I'm starting to see, like, literally, I really feel like the audience can take almost a step-by-step approach from everything that we're uncovering from this conversation. I saw a few heads shaking when I asked that question. I want to go with Carl. What were your additional thoughts to that question? Is leadership skills just for leaders or for everybody?
Everybody's a leader. And when I say that, the contents of it is you are a leader in your own right. What we have tried to define, and if you work in corporate for any amount of time, the leader that you had leading you 9 times out of 10, and I always go that high in that percentage, is you were led by someone that you didn't appreciate being led by. And in the essence of that, their qualities and their skills was not the matching of your values of what you thought a leader to be. I have a podcast and a live show that I do on LinkedIn every Monday night, and it's called Authentic Leadership 101. And what we discuss in that is not the form or fashion of leadership of what you understand it to be, because we've got the check boxes. And I go into a lot of things on the authentic side to make you think. I love people to say, after I said something to them, because I'm all about cultivating the mind and making you think outside of what you visually see. Because when you visually see something, what you've seen is as far as you think it can go. But when you cultivate the mind, you know, past your vision is something else. Past your sight is something else. And that's how I live with life. It's past what I see. And I love what Michael said. It's engaging the mind because it relates to the relationship that you can have. And I'm keen on relationship because I think it's valuable. It's essential that once you're in a relationship to something, you understand how it works. I can't be a husband and be in a relationship with my wife for 30 years and I have no idea how or what goes on in this relationship. I haven't fed it. I haven't cultivated. I haven't nourished it. She hasn't done the vice versa to me. And this is where we have to go in leadership. Leadership is about nourishment, engaging, developing, cultivating. Skills can be taught. I always say that leadership's qualities and leadership skills are two different distinct things. Skills I can teach you. I can give you skills book-wise, and you can do the application and learn those. But what are the qualities? Qualities are innate. They're abilities that I see, my self-awareness, my understanding that I can talk to you in this manner, but in you, I have to be softer. I can show you one time, but in you, I have to show multiple. This is what leadership is. So when we put a picture on leadership, it's not one dynamic. It's an understanding and a self-awareness of self, because that's why I say everybody could be a leader. So I love it, man. You guys have really, really excited me with a lot of things that we've talked about. And it is really phenomenal just to be included in this group of people. We got some geniuses on this panel for sure.
Glad to have you too as well, Carl. I think Andre, I know you're listening in. It looks like we might have to change the title of this topic after what Carl just said. From in the 21st century super skills to 21st century super qualities. A note for next year's summit. Thank you so much, Carl. All right, so we've talked about some of what are the from your perspective, some of the super qualities. I'm going to try use that term for the rest of this session. Now, maybe let's talk a little bit about what are the challenges and the misconceptions about learning super qualities. Juliet, if I could start with you. Sorry, did I hear something? No, all right, good. Juliet, so I think I want to ask you about passion. I think you talk a lot about passion. You say passion is really important. Michael gave a perspective from those entitled millennials, so to speak, from the perspective of where it's used as an excuse. I wanted to ask you, from all the conversations and experiences you had in life, the other thing that we hear a lot of people saying is, oh, passion is for people who have the fortune to have that, or, the circumstances in order to go pursue their passion. So is passion just something for those lucky few, or can anybody, regardless of their circumstances, pursue their passion?
Anyone, in my opinion. But the one thing I do want to say is I use the word passion and purpose. So I use them as kind of interchangeable. Not everyone does. So what Michael was saying is 100%. Someone's like, well, I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what I'm meant to do, blah, blah, blah. But your purpose is also tied with your passion, I believe. So I believe what your purpose is, again, whether you believe in God or you believe in the universe, every single person on this earth has a purpose. Not every person finds their purpose, right? And I'm not sure which, if it was Michael or Andreas or Carl who said that you can learn from anyone. Anyone has a story. So whether you're a janitor, a garbage collector, a CEO, or the president, everyone has a story. Everyone does not know how to share their story, but every single person can learn from other people's stories. And that is so important. Like when we were talking about super skills, that is a huge super skill, that you just talk and listen to people, and you're going to get something from every single person you listen to if you open your mind and your heart, right? And that's where the kindness comes back in there. So yes, I truly believe everyone can find their purpose and passion. They just have to sit in it and follow it. So if you don't have the means, right? Oh, I don't know how to do that. You find a job that's going to help you pay for that purpose and passion. So when I started my podcast, just to give you a little thing, my husband does well, but I didn't want him to put money into this. I was like, so I started babysitting dogs. And I was like, I'll have a dog come over and my husband's like, well, honey, you don't need to do this. And I was like, but I want to do this. I want to do this for me. So I'm going to find a little bit of a side hustle to fund what I want to do, because I want to see where I can take that, right? I know I chose to stay home. So yes, your income is my income, and we have a very good relationship and we have a belief in that. However, I wanted to see what I actually could do with that, right? So I could sit, you know what? I don't have a lot of money because I don't want to have this. I want to see what I can do with a little bit of funds and where I can take it. So every single person can do that. They just have to figure out what their purpose/passion is. And as I said, I use them as very interchangeable, but that's me. Not everyone might agree with that. But when you follow your purpose and your passion, doors are just going to keep opening up. And that's what one of the things I love when you get into the flow. And I know everyone on this panel has been there, right? Where you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I just followed this passion, this purpose, because it came to me, right? I find when I walk my dogs is when I get a lot of clarity. And that's when I kind of like can be with myself and be creative in my mind. And I get ideas. I use voice notes and all these different things. And I always challenge everyone to do that, to find that time. And it doesn't have to be meditation. You know, there's people out there, I don't meditate. I don't meditate. I meditate in a different way. I don't sit and do the that's not for me. I'm a very energetic person, and that's very hard for me to do. Have I done it at times? Yes, but I find my most clarity is when I'm walking my dogs. And I found that many years ago. And so I challenge everyone to do that, because if you just listen, right? You just walk and listen to your thoughts and just kind of be in that moment. You're going to hear, if you allow yourself, what your purpose and your passion is. And then when you follow that and the doors just keep opening, it's like, yes, okay, I'm doing it. Yes, I'm doing it. Are doors going to close at times? Yes. but that just means you're supposed to take a left instead of a right. But maybe you took that left first. Don't let that left take your legs out. Just go, okay, I need to reevaluate that this is now, the doors are not opening. And when you get into that flow, it is a feeling of none other than to be like, okay, I am doing what I am meant to be doing. I'm doing what God meant for me doing. I'm doing what the universe is meant to be doing. So I believe anyone can follow their purpose and passion. You just have to be creative about it and curious. I love when Andreas, you were talking about curiosity is literally my, like, another passion of mine. I am such a curious person. I've taught my children to be curious, always ask questions because that's how you learn. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Awesome stuff. Michael, if I can move on to you, since you're also talking a bit about passion. So actually, I had a question to you regarding, let's assume most people in the world would want to be able to thrive and have the best experience of life. But there are barriers that might come that are beyond our control. So what have you found, having worked with people from all around the world, what are some of the common barriers that are actually within our control to change?
Number one, the story that we create, the story that we manifest in our mind that dictates or was inspired by our background. And if we were to come from a background that seems to be sad, that seems to be limiting, hence the story that will manifest in our mind would be limiting. I mean, you're hearing it from me. I was a bully victim. I was not raised in the richest of families, though I have very loving grandparents and parents. I love them to bits, even until today. But imagine if I've lived on with that limiting mindset that I am just a bully victim. I think I've been bullied for more than a decade in my life. I'm not meant for anything better. I'm not meant for anything great. I don't think I would be in this panel right now, So I think one of the things that people need to understand is that your past does not define your future. As much as people like to think that, oh, it does. Of course it does. If I was born into a poor family, well, too bad for me, right? Well, guess what? Bill Gates said this amply in one of the TED Talks that he was giving. Bill Gates said, if you were born poor and if you die poor, that's all your fault, man. You can't blame anyone because the universe or God has given you 70, 80, 90, 100 years to make decisions along your life's journey to change your life from being poor to being better, from being poor to being able to afford a better lifestyle, to love more, to be kinder. So I think it's a very powerful solution that I would like to share with all of you out there watching this right now. And that is, what story, what perception is playing in your mind? If it's an empowering story, if it's something that fuels your passion, if it's something that gets you awake every day, feeling excited, wanting to change your life of others, change the life of the world, that's great, right? But if it's something that defeats you, if it's something that reminds you to stay in bed, if it's something that reminds you that it's not your fault, it's everyone else's fault except yours, then you have the power to change it. So that would be my answer for you, Sanjaya.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I can't stop saying thank you. Brilliant. I hope you all know, even if I don't say it, I'm super impressed by the responses. Thank you so much. Andreas, if I could move on to you. So you work with a lot of people on an individual basis. They come with possibly with challenges or certain areas they want to work with in their issues that they want to work in their life. So what are some of the common themes that you keep seeing? And walk us through a little bit of what are the first steps that you take with that.
Okay, wow, that's an interesting question. As I thought I continued talking, I want to say something to Michael or to the rest. People always say the past does not define you. I believe the past defines you if you don't change the story in your mind. I think it's a bit. I like to give a different spin around that one. If you change the limiting beliefs, if you change the negative emotions that are accumulated inside of us from the beginning of time, and you start working on yourself, then you start to define your future and leave the past behind. Because the negative emotions in the past, it's memories. All the memories make us. It's who we are. We are who we are right now because of the decisions we made in the past and the beliefs we adopted along that line. And around the limiting belief, oftentimes there are negative emotions or emotions overall. But in the past, Michael, you were saying like you were, and it's a great story. You were bullied, and you could have said by yourself, like, okay, I was bullied, and you're still pissed off with that one, angry with that one. That negative emotion in the past would be who you are today. You would still live through the same experience over and over and over again, the same story, the same history, the same event overall. But you worked on it, you removed the negative emotions, and you now can talk about it without negative emotions, can share your story. So automatically the negative emotions in the past don't matter anymore. It's your story. And that's when you change your meaning in your life. And that comes when oh, I got some visitor in the back. that is a story what people come to me. Many times people come to me and it's my clientele overall. They have reached a certain stage in their lives. They have worked on themselves along that line, and they got stuck somewhere. And they realize, and Marshall Goldsmith, one of the best executive coaches in the world, was saying that what brings you here today doesn't bring you to the next stage in your life tomorrow. So it's about changing your personality, changing your attitudes, changing who you are as a person. And many people say about changing behaviors, changing capabilities. But the moment I change a behavior, the moment I change a capability, I'm no longer my behavior, I'm no longer my capability. I change my personality. But to me, it's really about, there's a new book around that one as well, it's about changing the person and not changing the behavior. Work on the person, not the behavior. Because when you work on a person, Albert Einstein was saying you can't change you can't change a problem at the same level of occurrence. So you got to go to a higher level. So I work with my clients at their identity level, at their behavioral, at their beliefs level, their values level. And the moment you make changes over there, beliefs change, behaviors change, the environments change. So the thing is really about, yes, it's about changing the story you're holding in your mind, giving a different meaning, realizing that outside of us is really just information, but what we are making inside of here is what creates our life. So Julia, you were saying like, hey, it's all about passion. And somebody else, I don't know the name anymore, I think Roger Moore, I think that's the wrong name, it was an author as well. He said like, if I work for a boss, I'm stressed out if I work for a boss or in the job that I hate. After 3-4 hours, I'm stressed out. But if I work in an organization that is totally engaging me with great people, great teams, great collaboration, I can work 14, 16 hours a day. I don't feel tired. I feel passionate. I don't feel stressed. And I'm totally subscribed to this one. So what I'm doing in my life is helping people actually as well, creating a different story, help them remove anxiety, help them remove the negative emotion that holds them back, remove the fear from the past to help them create their life. And help them to make their life a better reality of where they want to go, whatever that is.
Changing your story. Fantastic. Okay, awesome. One last question, and we are really running out of time quickly. So, Faz, I wanted to ask you because I found this term you coined. I assume you coined it in one of the articles. You have this in an article I read of yours called assumicide. What is that, and why do you think that is so important for people to be wary of?
Assumicide. That was an item in the Urban Dictionary. It reads, when your assumptions lead to dire consequences that could lead you to your potential demise, you commit assumicide. And that's so related to what what Andreas was saying, what Michael was saying, in fact, what everyone was saying about how we have to change our story. And it's all here, it's all in our mindset. So we need to clarify stuff and not just act on the assumptions that we carry. That's basically what it is. Because our mindset influences our behaviors. Remember, Andrea said that just now. And it's about big assumptions, small assumptions. If we don't cross-check them, if we don't clarify them, we'll continue on to a path that could bring not good things to us. We could behave in a way that does not bring the full benefits of that situation. Just because we don't clarify what that friend of ours was saying, and we thought, oh my goodness, she just said something really bad about me. We follow that assumption, we go on with our life, we may lose a good friend because she may not have said that thing the way we saw it. So that's what I meant by assumicide. Sometimes I'm being very safe here. I personally think it's almost every time when we follow our assumptions and it leads to dire consequences. It could lead us to our own demise because it's our mindset. We really need to be able to change our mindset. Thank you. And unmute.
Apologies. There's sometimes a phantom muter in on one of these StreamYards I always seem to encounter. Sorry, Afaz. I was just saying, I really relate to what you're saying in the context that when we hear the term assuming, it's usually about another person, exterior. But what's really pertinent to what the gist of this conversation has been and what you said is, at least for me, is the assumption about we make about ourselves and also whether we can or cannot change our story or actually be able to find our passion. Those are assumptions internally that we've built in, and I think to shine light on the fact that it is possible to not make assumptions and change your story is fabulous. I have so much. I don't know if Andrea will let us speak a little bit more or not, but I have to wind down to the last bit, and we just only have a very few couple minutes left. I want to thank the panelists again and the audience. It's Friday evening, at least here in Malaysia. So thank you so much for listening. It's great to have your participation. So before we end today's discussion, if we can, for each of the panelists, I think we talked about what is super skills, why is it important, what are some of the challenges, a takeaway. I really want the audience to see, okay, now based on all the great insights and tools and tips on where to look and how to start, I wanted if each of the panelists could speak to what is the first step that they can take. Now that we talked, it is not a skill, it's not like a subject that we learn. It seems to seem like it's a practice we have to apply to our daily lives, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So starting with Michael, we have so much that occupies us: family, chores, children. So how do we begin to apply the first skills? What's that first step that we should take?
Look for a role model that you believe and you feel represents you. And this role model is someone that you look up to. This role model is someone that you respect. This role model is someone that, in your mind, he or she is the definition of success. All right. And then just learn what they do. Just prioritize like the way they do. Just have conversations with them to understand what are their values, how do they make decisions, what goes through their mind, what thoughts occupy their minds. Just do that. I'm a believer where there is no such thing, and again, this is an NLP term, Andreas would know about this. There's no such thing as not enough resources. There's only an unresourceful mind. So role modeling is one of the best ways that I've personally adopted as well to better myself every day and every time. So that would be my advice to all of you watching this program right now.
Thank you so much, Michael. Carl, on to you. You talk about transforming ourselves. Transforming our vulnerabilities to become our superpowers, which I think is so profound. how can this be applied to our personal relationships?
In the essence of a course, I have a course that'll be coming out soon. It's called the Vulnerability Toolkit. And what I go through in that course is the 4 steps that I actually took myself to be on this road that I'm on. And what I had to first and foremost do before I can evolve anything else, even I like what Michael said, and I think that's the further stage along in the development phase of there. But first I had to reintroduce myself to me. And what that truly meant, that I had to realign myself back with the values that I had lost from trying to fit in, from trying to work in corporate, from identifying with through what someone else said. But the values, the intrinsic values that I grew up on, that I was raised with, that maybe I understood to be right or wrong, moral and immoral. And I have to reintroduce myself to those. And once I've done that, then I have to align myself with that. And I have to start breaking bad habits. Those bad habits consist of anything that does not align with your values. So once the reintroduction is done, which is step 1, then you start breaking bad habits. And upon breaking bad habits, you look to move forward. So then you start adopting, creating, and cultivating the new habits, replacing the bad ones. And once you start seeing that, you'll start seeing, which is on my last step, the breakthrough. You start living your life aligned with your values, and you'll start accepting and not having someone tell you how you should live, but you'll live according to how you want to be fulfilled. And I want to jump on what Julia said. It is a God purpose. I'm only here because what God has done. I tried to commit suicide, and he did not let it happen. And from that point in time in my life, I knew that there was something different that I had to do, so others would see that not only was it a God above us and the creator with us, but also someone that could change your life. So to me, it's never been about the amount of money I can make. It's never been about how many courses I can have, how many people I can have, how many followers I can have on any platform. It's always been about me transforming one individual, one at a time, who's ever come across my path. So those are the action steps that I would take. Reintroduce yourself, break your bad habits, move forward, and look for the breakthrough.
You're muted. Sanjay, you're muted.
I'm sorry. Apologies.
You get
Yes,
excited.
Andreas, Andreas, pointing to you. NLP is about, if I understood NLP as a gist, it's about building awareness of your mind, right? Before anyone can come to a class or get into deep, what is one thing that the audience can start to apply as soon as this panel is over in getting more awareness of their mind?
It's not necessarily about learning NLP, of course, you know, I mean, goodness. But let me start with something I'm always amazed by still in this time and age. And that is about people don't know what they want in their life. People don't have an outcome in their life. So it's really about getting clarity about what do you want in your life? How shall your life look like overall? That you are happy, fulfilled, passionate, that you have a good life. Know your outcome, so to speak. It's a very, very important, not what you don't want, but what you really, really, really want. And then maybe along that line, it comes then in alignment with what Michael said overall. Also, of course, find a role model or find someone who is living your life the way you could have it. And it could be even somebody on a YouTube channel, but maybe it's not just a person, but it's a quality the person is exhibiting. So along that line, when you know what you want and who you are, you have to define who you are as a person, who you want to be, the qualities you want to have, the values you want to have. What do you want to believe when you change along that line? What kind of habits do you want to live it? And then start living that new you. Now, the thing is, the challenge is, of course, the moment you start living the new you, it's not nice. I promise you, it's no longer paradise, because your whole neurology is designed to keep you in place where you are today. So you're going to feel very, 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 very uncomfortable, confused, frustrated. You don't want to do it. Your mind is screaming, go back to your old habit, drink the coffee, smoke the cigarette, drink the alcohol, stay who you are before, because you know who you were before. You know your problems. You could talk about your problems for the rest of your life because you know your problems inside out. But the moment you change, it feels uncomfortable. And that is, you have to learn to embrace change. I think Faz was mentioning it earlier. You have to learn to embrace change, live change, because you only, and I think some smart person was saying that the only way to predict the future is to create it. And that means living in change overall. And the moment you're stepping back to that feeling of like, I don't want to be frustrated, confused, and anxious anymore because it changes, go back to my old self, you start all over again. Well, that's what I think to do, basically. It's really about know your outcome, who you want to know your outcome, where do you want to go next year, 6 months from now, maybe just 1 month from now. And who do you want to be along that line, and the whole package, values, beliefs, and behaviors, and start living it.
Brilliant. I just saw this perfect image of what you're saying in the context of, if I decide today that I want to be a bodybuilder and I have a six-pack, it's not going to be easy. So you have found your passion, you found your purpose, but those first 2 steps is going to be hard. You're going to have to go to the gym and build that, the first few aches and pains, and you get better at it. So love that. Thank you so much, Andreas.
We had one lady, I'll give you one example how crazy it can be. We had one lady in our training one time, and she was in her 40s, and her dream was to become a pole dancer. And everybody around her said, like, no, you're too old, you're too inflexible, you'll never be able to make it. We coached her with all the packages along that line, what she needed to do, to really, why not following your dream? And then she articulated it. She never told it to her husband earlier. Finally, her husband said, like, she told her husband. The husband said, why don't you do it? Why didn't you tell me earlier? I support you all the way. And the husband and her together were doing it, and she became quite a good pole dancer along that line in little settings, not club settings and performances all together. It's all possible. It's just our story again that holds us back. I can't do it. No, why not? Always ask yourself, why can't you do it?
Yeah. And then asking why not in every, I mean, at least if I reflect on my moments of when I'm diverted or not feeling so empowered, it's actually little moments throughout the day that you've got to be kind of conscious of where your thought is going off into. Thank you so much, Andreas. Faz, if I could ask you, we talked about leadership skills, and we talked about the 4 learning agilities. Out of those, can you maybe tell the audience what is in the workplace? If I want to build a superpower, where can I start? What's the first step to take?
What a lovely question. Ask questions to yourselves and to others. More importantly, to yourselves. I mean, imagine this is an empowering question. The question is, knowing that this is the decision you want to take, what would you do? And when you ask yourself this question, you feel like, oh wow, open a book, write it down every night before I go to bed. I would write at least one small page. I want to see how I saw the day. And by asking questions, I open my mind, and I can embrace everything that we discussed here this evening. Because are there stupid questions? Well, I believe that yes, they are. Yes, they are. There are obvious questions that probably don't help others in the room. However, ask it anyway. That's my rule. Ask it anyway. So ask questions to yourself. Yeah. That's the one thing that we should start applying in the workplace. And to the managers and leaders who are watching, please create the space where people around you can ask questions. Ask questions. Thank you.
And if I could just add my own perspective, I mean, fantastic. Yes, ask questions definitely, and ask better questions as well, is something you told me earlier. But I think also what's important with that, at least from my perspective, I could add is also it's okay to say I don't know, because then you can ask better questions if you can say I don't know. And a lot of people, at least in this world, we have to keep putting up this facade of who we are and not ever say I don't know and open yourself up. Thank you so much. And Juliet, your expertise is storytelling and interviewing. So, what are some of the valuable skills that you learned by being a storyteller or developing your storytelling skills that I think you can tell the audience on how they can apply those lessons into their daily lives?
Yes. So basically, the number one thing is to know yourself, right? To know how you do something the best. You don't have to do it like Oprah did it. You don't have to do it like Ellen DeGeneres needs to do it. You need to do it how you work best. So, what I mean by this is there's a number of ways to interview people. I am a very curious person. So and I'm dyslexic. We talked about that, right? So if I have all these notes down on a piece of paper and I'm trying to read from them, I'm not my natural self. I stumble, I'm nervous. It doesn't flow well. I am not my authentic self when I have all these notes. So the way I learned very quickly is the way I interview the best is I learn a little bit about the person, just a little bit through voice notes so I can hear their story to see if it fits my podcast. And then from there, we have a conversation, just like we're doing here now. And because one of my super skills is coming like basically going off of what other people are saying and really believing in what I know and how to help other people. I ask very curious questions. I ask different questions than just your average person because I'm curious of what that person's story is. And when the person is telling their story, I get excited like, oh, wait, I want to know this and I want to know that. So I know that's how I interview best. I write a little bit of things down or I just will have it so it's in my mind. But if you are, I've time and time again, I'll have clients that say to me, okay, well, I wrote all these notes, but I never came across authentic. And I'm like, well, but do those notes stumble you? And they say, yes. Well, you don't take notes. And I said, no, I love to learn about what the person's journey is, what their story is, and how it unfolds as it comes out. So, what I say to everyone is know what your story is first, right? Really sit down and think about it. Think about when you were young, just like Michael and Andreas and Carl and Faz and Sanjay, we all have a story, right? So think about that story. What shaped you? What along the lines became who you are today? Where did you change parts of your story? And know how to tell your own story, right? I think that's so important to be able to tell your own. It doesn't matter if you have a business, if you're an influencer, if you just like Instagram or like social media. It's so important that you know your own story and you're able to share and tell your own story because something is going to come out of it, whether it's teaching other people or learning from other people. And then the other thing is to be curious. And not everyone is curious in the same way. It is my super skill. It is my God's gift that God gave me a very curious mind. And the way I interview people, it's just I came about it, right? I didn't realize that I was really good at this until I started it and tried it. So that's the other thing. You don't know what you can do until you go out and try it. So know your story, be curious, and know how you feel the most comfortable when you're interviewing someone or when you're talking to someone. Is it to make a bunch of notes? Do you feel better to have the notes in front of you because that's how you feel more authentic? Then you do that, but you have to do you, and that's how you're going to achieve things in life.
Create your lane within the framework that's out there. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Juliet. Thank you, all of you, for those wonderful insights. We have to bring this to a close, unfortunately. We spent a lot of time and I really appreciate it. Before we go, I want the audience to know how people can connect with you. But I have one last question that I want to squeeze out of you guys before we end this. So my question, as I allow you to say how people can connect with you, the last question is, if I'm not mistaken, do all of you have children or is it most of you? Michael, I know the others. Michael, you don't have no kids, but
Not yet.
you work with a lot of the younger generation, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So like 2 kids, 1 kid, 3 kids, and works with a lot of kids. So maybe you have more kids than everybody, Michael. All right. But my last question is, as you say your handles, your connection handles, is what are some of the things that we can do or maybe not do in order to foster these super skills in children and the generations that are coming up? Because we still have 80 years to go in this 21st century. So even kids being born today will be part of this 21st century since the title. So with your handles, if you could answer that question. If I could start with Carl, please.
Yes, you can find me, CarlSeanWatkins.com is the website. I'm also on LinkedIn, Carl S. Watkins 1. You can see me on there as well. Connect with me on Instagram at Carl Shaw Watkins Consulting for both handles. If I can say one thing that I've allowed my children to do that has been fostered by me, and come to find out that as an adult, it wasn't really. My mother and father let me dream. Let me dream. And when I say that, not the essence of the sociological speaking of dreaming and knowing that, but they let me have my fantasies. They let me have my sense of imagination. They didn't cut off direction. They didn't give me things to say, this is how you can do, that is how you can do. They allowed me to come with them with what was working in my mind. And I think that has been the greatest gift that I've given my children. I didn't give them a direction. I gave them the opportunity. And with that, they sought out the things that they were passionate in, that they loved, and they curated that and cultivated it in themselves. So if you are a parent, the biggest gift you can, besides discipline, definitely don't want to leave that out, but the biggest gift that you can give them is the opportunity to be free. Don't box them in. Don't give them choices to make as careers. Don't tell them this is what you'll be good at. Don't direct them what they should study in school. So that's about the best that I can leave with you this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carl. On to you, Andreas. I see you already put your LinkedIn in your name to cut the time short, but please go ahead. Your last words, please.
Okay, I wanted to say actually, like, okay, what can you tell your kids? Become an accountant, becoming a lawyer, we go to the bank, study heavily in school to be successful. No, don't go like that, okay? In my training, we had parents coming to my training, and they said, like, they asked me or my wife then, my child wants to become a YouTuber or an influencer. Is that actually a job? So yeah, I'm totally with Carl. Don't box children in. Let them explore themselves. Hey, if they don't want to study, it's okay. I think, Michael, we're going to share a story as well that most likely knows there are companies across the world who don't want to have students anymore nowadays. As long as you have an open mind, you're able to learn, you're able to teach, you're able to work in teams. If you're able to be open-minded and curious once again, then you can go far in the world. So don't box children in. Teach them the basic skill they need to have. They need to know that they can't run across the street or jump out of windows or so and fly like Superman. That's good not to do, but otherwise just allow them to be who they want to be and see what comes ultimately. I always believe they will end up falling on their feet and create something powerful, and we are going to stand next to them and say, like, wow, never knew that you could do that. Back to you, Sanjaya.
Thank you. At LinkedIn, and you can find Andreas at LinkedIn at Andreas Don NLP. You see it on his name there. Yes, just a quick question. I really thank you. I know I'm going way over time. Does anyone have to go very quickly? If I could just go, is it Faz? Faz, Michael. All right, Faz and Michael. If you, last bit, I think starting with Faz, if you could just say your way to connect with you.
When my daughter was a baby, I asked myself, what kind of woman do I want to raise? And I'm so happy that I only have one child. Otherwise, I would end up stressing myself out. And so what I did was I created the space for her to grow those behaviors. I created the space where she would tell me stuff and I would stop what I was doing and listen to her, even though in my heart I'm thinking, oh my goodness, is this going to be okay? But I listened to her, and she's 23 years old now. And I am happy to note that she tells me stuff, and I am very happy that I created that environment so that she can grow the behaviors that I want to see. So that's a little bit of a parameter that I would suggest everybody out there to start to consider. Are we creating the space where our children can create that behavior? What do we want from our children? Are we creating the space? So it really comes back to us. When I was a young young woman. I'll be 50 years old next year. So when I was a young woman, I told my parents nothing. And then I realized as a parent, I want my daughter to tell me stuff. So whenever my mother said, "Oh no, I don't want to hear that from her," I said, "That's okay. She can tell me, no problem." So create the space. Create that space. And good luck. Thank you, Sanjaya. You can look for me on LinkedIn by looking for my name, Faz Space Kamar. I'm looking forward to connect.
And unmute. I love this. I love this.
Sorry, Michael, on to you. I know you have to go. Please, your parting words.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm trying to be a father. And again, fatherhood is not only my decision, it's my wife's decision and the mother to my kids, right? But I've worked with a lot of young people. I would like to leave all of you with this thought, and that is, we have heard from Andreas, we've heard from Faz, we've heard from Carl. I think what's important for us as parents, if we were to instill super skills, super qualities, or whatever we call it, to our kids, we ourselves need to be the role models first. We need to walk the talk, because especially when your children are much younger, they tend to role model after you. So watch your behaviors, practice what you preach. And then if you are the one practicing super skills yourself, super qualities yourself, your children will follow. And it'll be much easier to mold them as they grow along their journey of life. And of course, I would love to connect with all of you. I know that Juliet, you have connected with me over at Instagram. I'm on Instagram as well. You all can find me over on LinkedIn. You could see my LinkedIn handle over there at Michael Tiosu Lim, or that is also my Instagram handle. I look forward to connect with all of you. Faz, I just dropped you a message over on LinkedIn as well. And for Andreas, always a pleasure. Would love to catch up with you and your wife again one day.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you.
And we'd love to catch up with you too, Sanjaya. Okay?
Please do.
Thank
Please
you.
do. Thank you so much. Juliet,
Good night,
thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Bye. You've been waiting patiently. I'm sorry for keeping you, but I appreciate your final words.
No worries. So you can find me at I am Juliet, Juliet HAHN on pretty much all the social medias. LinkedIn, I am just my name, Juliet Han. My podcast is Your Next Stop with Juliet Han, and that's your YOUR or YNS Live. You could find me there on Fireside or any of the social media handles if you just put Juliet Han in there. So aside from, teaching our kids right from wrong and our values, right? Because those are fundamental, is to be yourself. To be yourself, and yourself is okay. Who you are is okay, and you're enough for what this world is here, and you will be okay if you just follow your heart and, just again, be yourself, be curious, always be curious, always ask questions. Just because authority or adults might tell you something, ask them. You don't need to challenge them disrespectfully, but you need to ask questions, because just because a teacher says one thing doesn't mean that that's the correct thing. And I'm, again, not saying this in any disrespect, but if you feel, I don't understand that, ask, because that is where you're going to learn. And learning other people's opinions and other people's views is so important. You don't have to agree with them, but you do have to respect them. And if we can all respect each other and listen to each other, this world would be a better place, because right now we are all not listening to each other. We are all just assuming things about each other. But if we ask questions, hey, why do you think that? I'm not coming at you. I'm just curious. Why is that in your mind? We will be in a better place. So that is something I've asked my children. I've taught my children, my husband and I, from very young, always ask questions. And just because someone says something doesn't mean that's the lay of the land. Ask them why they suggested that or why they're teaching that. And you can do that in a very respectful way. Thank you guys so much.
Julia, you said it exactly how I'm doing as well, respect each other. The world would be a better place. I always say that as well. Totally true.
It is, right? Because even if people in our families, we all have different opinions, but we don't have to agree with them, but that's their opinion and they believe that. So why are we going to hate on each other?
Exactly.
Thank you so much, everybody. Wonderful session. Great Friday evening audience. Thank you for joining in. All the best to you. Have a great, wonderful weekend, and see you in the next Global Empowerment Summit 2022. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. High five.
High five. Bye, everybody.
Virtual high five.